everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I'm Angelia, and today it's time again for Friday Reads on November the something or other. And I hope that you're doing well. I feel like the week went kind of fast. I feel like I just talked about the election results. I'm trying to process that, and I don't even feel like I've made any progress. I feel like I'm just kind of where I was last week. So I'm not going to rehash back through that because it's just something to buckle in and try to deal with in over the long haul. So hopefully we can hang in there together. So I hope you are doing well. I'm going to talk about my usual stuff, shows and books. And I have actually quite a few books to talk about this week. So first of all, let's talk about some shows and movies. So the first thing that we enjoyed until we screwed it up was a play that was provided for a few days for free from National Theater at Home, which is a streaming service that provides access to really great drama, British theater. I really want to explore more of what they have, and I'm lightly toying with the idea of a subscription or at least purchase. You can do sort of some pay-per-views and stuff like that. But anyway, I found out about this play that was free over the weekend because Constance told me. Viewer Constance Campbell let me know that about this opportunity because she knows I'm getting really into plays and reading and watching plays. So she told me they were having this 3-day special where the play Nye was free and you could access it through YouTube. So I didn't know anything about the play or the subject of the play. It's a biographical play about the man who established the National Health Service in Great Britain. Don't know anything about this guy. Now I know a little bit about this guy, but I only know half the story because of the mistake that we made. So I looked at the days that it was playing and things we had to do. We were going to watch it Sunday and Monday because we are I've talked about it before, we're very lightweight on long things, longer movies, stuff like that. I mean, if we go to a play, obviously we see the whole play, but if we're watching a movie, we usually cut it in half and we watch it over 2 different nights. On a regular night, if we're watching TV shows with episodes, we usually don't watch more than an hour or an hour and a half of anything because we read a lot in the evening as well. So anyway, we looked at the schedule. We said, okay, we'll watch it Sunday and Monday. Great. So we watched the first half. We were really enjoying it. Loved the production. I thought it was a little bit, I wasn't sure if this was kind of a rosy colored picture of this person, but Michael Sheen was really great in the role. We were enjoying the play. And then we come back to watch it Monday and it was gone because we forgot about the time difference. And we forgot that Monday had already ended by the time we sat down on Monday evening here in Texas to watch the rest of the play. So we saw half of the play and we enjoyed it quite a lot. Then a couple of shows that we've been watching came out with their new seasons as well. Somebody Somewhere started season 3. This is they say this will be their last season, and I don't hear people talk about this show very much, but we really like this show a lot. It just has so much heart and it's really funny. And if you've already run through Schitt's Creek multiple times, but you want something that gives you a similar kind of feeling when you watch it, try Somebody Somewhere. It's a story about a woman in her 40s who moves back home to care for her sister who has cancer. When the show starts, the sister has already passed, but she's just kind of adrift, and then she kind of ends up putting together a found family and a new best friend and has to kind of forge some new pathways with her other sister, and it's just really good. And there's just there is a scene, the episodes are coming out now, but if you're watching this show, the scene at the housewarming party with the song, that was just all the feels. So I do recommend this show. The other show that came back around is Bad Sisters, and this is a dark comedy, and it's really sharp and biting, and it's an Irish show about, apparently we were looking at the credits and it's based on a Belgian show, I think, but it's been adapted by Sharon Horgan, and it's season 2. Season 1 was all about this close-knit group of 5 sisters, and one of them has this horrible abusive husband. He's just the biggest ass, and he has pissed off everybody all through the family and other people in town. And at the beginning of the show, he's dead in his coffin. And then we go through this backstory of how he died and how all the sisters desperately wanted him gone, but all these different things that went wrong. And then how did he actually end up dead? So now we have started season 2, and there is drama galore, and it's just dark, good fun. But there's also substance to it about these sisters and their relationships and their different personalities, because there's 5 of them, but they're all quite different, and I like them all in different ways. All right, but let's move on to the books. That's what you mostly came for, right? So I did finish. What did I finish? I think 3, 4. I think I finished 4 books, and then I'm in the midst of a couple of others. So let's take a look. I talked last week very briefly about All Yours by Claudia Piñeiro. It's part of a group project. We finished this book, and I think we pretty much wound up our discussion of it as well. We had a late arriving member to the group, Brian from Bookish, and so we kind of had a bonus round of talking about this book again when Brian was able to finish it. And we just really enjoyed this novel that is on the surface about a woman who is obsessed with her husband's infidelity and trying to help him cover up an accidental crime that has occurred. But it's much more subversive than that, and it's lots of commentary about Argentinian societal structure, feminism, the way that women perceive themselves and each other, the way they perceive men, the roles in society, mothers and daughters. There's a whole lot going on in a very slim book, and we really enjoyed it. And we are currently reading the sequel to that book, which is Time of the Flies. And as you can see, I have lots of things to say, but we haven't started discussing it yet. So I'm not going to talk about it, but it is about the same main character 16 years later. So she's brought up this character from the time that this novel was written to today's time, which lends much opportunity to reflect on how society has both changed and not changed in the ensuing time. Not going to say anything else about the plot or the themes right now, but I'm having a jolly good time reading this book, which is quite different in style, but I'm getting a better sense of the topic and thematic groundwork that Claudia Piñeiro likes to focus on. All right, another book that I finished this week, and here we are with the matching colors again, or if you're into HGTV, the colorways. So here is Color Television by Danzy Senna. I think I was halfway through this book last week when I was talking, and I was pretty enthusiastic. Well, reader, I must confess that I did not end as enthusiastic as I started. The book for me kind of falls apart in the second half, and it was very disappointing because I've been looking forward to reading this book for quite a while, and then it was supposed to be my antidote and my funny relief this week, and I ended up being irritated at the second half of the book. I thought, that is not what I was looking for, is more irritation. All right, so let's talk about what I liked and what I didn't like. So the basic premise is really good. You have a woman named Jane. She's married. She has 2 children. She's biracial but prefers the term mulatto. Her husband's black. They live in Los Angeles. She is a non-tenured writing instructor who had a successful first novel, and she and the university are expecting her second novel to come out and also do well, and her possibility of gaining tenure and not being saddled with lots and lots of classes to teach each semester kind of hinges on this. And her husband is an artist. He's a painter whose paintings don't really sell, but he's preparing for a show in Japan. He's big in Japan. So they're house sitting for a wealthy friend that she went to writing school with, who found his fortune in screenwriting. Husband thinks he's a big sellout. She thinks, what's really so bad about having money and being comfortable? And that's kind of what she aspires to. She wants her book to come out and do well. She wants to have less pressure on her at work, but she really just wants to have a home of her own in one of these beautiful, affluent suburbs of Los Angeles and have this picture perfect catalog life and still be artists. That's what she wants, and everyone tells her that this isn't possible. You have to choose. So all of this I enjoyed and the way that she wrote it. But then in the second half, it just got really, really predictable. And a main important character who comes into the story is megatropy. Not magatropy, but megatropy. That would be even worse. Then I wouldn't even be spending time on this book. But anyway, I digress. So she begins to make a series of poor choices in pursuit of her goals. And they're just kind of cringy and terrible, and she's so seeking of success and approval, and she kind of hitches her wagon to this TV producer who is, this is the tropey character. He is that character that you have seen, I have seen anyway, in multiple books and TV shows recently, who is like really, really high energy and hyped up, and his mind just goes around 100 places at once, and he treats his assistants poorly, and he's on this idea and that, and you're in his glow, and he's totally into you, and then you're nothing, and he's forgotten about you, and he's just this and that and the other, and everybody is just seeking his attention and his approval. So that's the kind of guy that she starts to work with. And I'm not going to tell you the outcome of all of this, but from that point on in the book, I could see everything coming a mile away. It was quite obvious what was going to happen. And I didn't really enjoy the sequence of events and her self-destructive choices. So the fun kind of fell out of the book, but it was good while it lasted. But overall, it was kind of uneven and unsuccessful. And there was also a gigantic plot hole near the end that a lot of things hinged on, that I just immediately was like, wait a minute, but what about this other thing that happened earlier? And I don't know. It just, either I missed something or the book missed something, but I had problems and I was disappointed. And so, yeah. So then I turned to solace myself with Catcher in the Rye. Is that a verb? Solace? I sought solace. You can't solace yourself. I sought solace, refuge, in my old favorite Catcher in the Rye, which I like to read about once a year, but usually around the holidays because that's when the book is set. So I read it once again, and it's not a comfort book like a feel-good book, even though it is very funny, because it's also very sad. And I'm sad every single time. I want to intervene every single time. In case you're just not familiar at all, Catcher in the Rye is narrated by a 17-year-old boy, Holden Caulfield, who tells a story about some things that happened the year before when he was 16. And he's narrating it to you from a year in the future in an unspecified facility, which, if you read between the lines, is a psychiatric hospital in California, where his brother lives, who is a screenwriters again. And he thinks that his brother is a sellout because he had written a collection of short stories and then became very successful writing in Hollywood. So there it is again, way back from the 1940s. But Holden, it's the story of a breakdown that occurs over several days. And Holden's voice is hilarious. He is sarcastic. He is absolutely fed up with the phoniness of the adult world and adult behavior, and he is loath to enter it himself. The expectations of the kind of man his family would expect him to become are just, he does not want to be that kind of person. He is stalled out. He is consumed with grief about his brother, Allie, a different brother who died a couple years before the story of leukemia. He's concerned about his younger sister, Phoebe, who's only 10 years old and is absolutely fantastic in her few short scenes in this book. She is a total scene stealer, and I have loved Phoebe forever. And he wants to save Phoebe from also growing up and falling into this world of phoniness and crappy people, and he just meanders around the city trying to avoid going home for the holidays, and just delaying the moment when his family finds out that he has been thrown out of yet another prep school. Why does he keep getting thrown out? Well, because he's depressed and suffering from grief and PTSD, because he also witnessed something really terrible at one of the schools. But this is a different time, and his parents don't quite seem to understand what's actually going on here. We know that his mother is also dealing with a lot of unprocessed grief as well. He mentions a number of times how nervous she is and how she doesn't sleep, and she chain smokes, very much like Holden himself. So this all sounds like kind of a bummer, I know, but it is a comforting book, because to a large extent I agree with a lot of Holden's point of view. I agreed when I was 14 and I agree now. Other things are more things I would chalk up to immaturity and the fact that Holden is trapped in the late 1940s and has some antiquated notions about girls and women, but a lot of it's just his inexperience going to all these boys' schools and his limited proximity to girls. This is total confusion about sex and sexuality, and he's just not ready. And he kind of wants to be ready, but he's not ready. And the whole thing, I mean, there's just so many things. I talk about this book every year, so I don't have anything really new to add. Why did I put a bunch of tabs in it? I don't know. I guess because every year when I read it, there's just certain places I want to come back and linger for a few extra minutes before I put it back on the shelf again. I love Catcher in the Rye. I also finished 6 Walks by Ben Shattuck, the subtitle In the Footsteps of Henry David Thoreau. So I think a month or two ago I read his new book, The History of Sound. This is absolutely stellar, and I don't hear enough people talking about this book. I hope that it's having a slow rollout and it's really going to shine in 2025, but this is definitely in my top 10 list. They are linked stories. But his previous book is a nonfiction book, 6 Walks. And this book is not exactly what I thought it was going to be. Michael and I decided to read this as part of Nonfiction November because we both love the history of sound. So I thought that it was his chronicle of an organized project of 6 walks that retrace walks that Henry Thoreau had and discussed and wrote about. And it's not exactly like that. He didn't set out and say, okay, here's the 6 walks and I'm going to do the 6 walks and write about it. He did walks at different times in his life over a 10-year period. So he talks about different times that he followed in Thoreau's footsteps from his early 20s to his mid-30s. So it wasn't a dedicated project. He's collected all of these experiences in retrospect and written about them. And he's written about what he was experiencing at the time, different challenges in his life, and also looking at the writings of Thoreau. In some cases, he's looking for some kind of healing or comfort, and other times he has different reasons or things he's seeking during his walks, and then also just trying to hit some of these major places and things that Thoreau would have experienced and seen. So it's non-linear as well. He doesn't start from the beginning and go to the end. He travels around kind of back and forth in his memory in the presentation of his different walks. I really like his writing style. I could see in reading this a lot of the backdrops of the geography and the type of people that he creates and the elements of nature writing that do appear in this, which is, I'm just going to cut to the chase. This is a much, much stronger book than this one. But not that this was a bad book, but if I hadn't read this, I don't think I'd have that much interest in this one. He meanders around in time and he talks about different things, and I'm not that interested in Thoreau. But the thing that really was sort of the drawback to both myself and Michael that we both noticed and we both talked about was that he's a very privileged person, and it was distracting. So when I read a book, and especially if it's nonfiction, and there's a person who has no visible means of support, and the story goes on for a while, and they never mention a job or money or being tight on their funds, or how they're paying for things, when it never ever comes up, I am really distracted, and I start to wonder about this person and want to know, well, what is this? Are you just not telling me about your job? Is it family money? Do you have a trust fund? What's going on? How are you able to do all these things? Because he basically narrates a very long and winding path to becoming an adult that takes years and years and years, and involves many, many camping trips and canoeing trips and hiking trips, and long periods of time where he lives in different places. He mentions living in Maine and New York and Los Angeles and overseas and a couple of different other countries. And he takes long sojourns through many places, and he never mentions having any kind of work at all. So that stuff, I don't begrudge him for being a wealthy person, but when you never mention it at all, I'm thinking, do you not realize, or do you just think it's not relevant, or what? It I don't know, it just kind of bugs me. And it bugged us, and then we felt like we were being petty, but I don't know. It just That's just how it is. It bugs me when somebody is clearly able to live their life due to a certain set of circumstances, and then they don't seem aware, or they don't acknowledge those circumstances. It bugs me. So that's the pros and cons. So that takes us to what I am currently reading. And I already mentioned, let's shuffling around here, Time of the Flies. Having a good time with this. I am slowly working through The Beadworkers by Beth Piatote, which is a collection of short stories by an indigenous writer from the Pacific Northwest, and they're not linked. As I haven't seen any links in here, but they're good, and I'm going to talk about them more when I get to the end, because I'm going really slow. I've only read maybe 4 of them. I'm just kind of reading them off and on. There's a couple in here that I really, really liked a lot, though, so I am going to talk about it eventually. And then I'm getting ready to start today The Mighty Red by Louise Erdrich. This is going to be a buddy read with Melinda from A Web of Stories, who also is the person who recommended this book to me. So I am really excited. What did we read? We read Fire Exit last month, and so now we're going to read The Mighty Red, and we've both been really looking forward to this new release by Louise Erdrich. We both wanted to include more Indigenous fiction in the month of November. Luckily, Louise supplied us with a new release to fill part of that roster. And I don't really know when the next opening comes up here in my reading schedule. I honestly do not know what I'm going to read, because I have lots of books on my cart. There's all the ones you heard about in the 10 before the end, but I feel like I've had a seismic mood shift since I made that video, and what I feel like reading might be something from there. It might be entirely different. You'll just have to hang on to your pantalones, because I don't know what is coming next. In many, many ways. So let me know what you think about these books, what you're reading, how you're feeling. I hope you're doing okay. We're gonna go, speaking of nature walks, we are gonna go to the botanical gardens, the South Texas Botanical Gardens this afternoon. They're having a free weekend if you bring in a recyclable water bottle or bag, I think. And so we drank a couple of waters from our hurricane water stash, and we're going to bring those. We haven't been there in a while. We're going to look at the fall foliage and enjoy a little walk out in the park. So I hope you have something nice planned as well, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.